Often on my platform, the people that normally come through, I always advocate the fact that this thing of arguing about religions needs to be investigated. I'm speaking about this because there's a lot of people that have been caught by this spirituality bug. you know, all of a sudden, everybody thinks that enlightenment is the way to go. Um, hey, I see that Tandega is liking up the live. Thank you, Monis. It will help us a lot. TikTok somehow has relegated my shit. you know, and I'm always at the back foot with this, but nonetheless, it's all right. It's all right. We'll see how far we can go with this. Babu Credo is known for a lot of things. You know, some of the things that Babu Credo speaks of, they're a little bit outlandish, and a lot of people don't want to agree with them. Which is one of the things that I normally deplore or implore to people that are onto consciousness movement. When you study a certain level of subject, don't go to it conclusively so. You must go to it as an investigative journalist, because this thing of consciousness, or this thing of the soul, or this thing of so-called enlightenment, or this bug of the new age has a lot of us confused, mainly because we are operating with different or old beliefs, if I was to call it that. So often than not, you find that we are recycling the old information, trying to understand the modern problems. This is what is called reasoning from the first principles, But it's not a lot of people that are interested in that, because sensation sells. If I tell you that my religion is much more stronger than yours, that is much to be believed, more than me advocating the fact that all religions are the same. All religions have been borrowed from African spirituality. So you often find yourself having to be very conscious when you are tackling or even attempting to speak about these things of spirituality, because it's said that at this day and age, everybody's a guru. you know? Like everywhere you go, every social media platform you go to, people are teaching people on how to attain their true selves. On my platform, I take a very unorthodox view to say that if you were to be found, or if you were to be so-called enlightened, or opening up your pituitary gland or your pineal gland or your whatever eye, because these days it's seventh eye, sixth eye, it's a mess. you know hey, last born, dumela ngwaneso. Tonight I'm speaking about the African initiated churches, but of course um, but of course, as you know, on my platform I tackle subjects that are on a peripheral sides, smaller yana details. This is to give anyone that is on a journey a little bit of a lookout, to say, don't necessarily do it like that. Find a way on how you can do it. What does it mean to you, or what does it mean for you? The same crap goes with the exercises that this new age movement is suggesting. Some people are busy doing the fire breathing to awaken the kundalini, to open up the third eye. Some people are doing microscopic orbits from Chinese to learn on how to awaken up the kundalini. What is this kundalini thingy? But the way I'm going to tackle it from the outside in. I'm going to be dealing with the religions and borrowing a little bit from spirituality, supplementing it with science. this is obviously to make it to be convincing to the people that are still learning or the skeptics out there. Because in as much as I speak about this thing a lot of saying that spirituality has been vilified, the trend keeps on persisting where people are still trying to sell this thing to people. This thing cannot be sold. You know? These conversations are not for me to convince you. As you see me coming on these platforms speaking like this, I'm speaking to the people that will understand this. And this is more particularly for the people that are on the work, on the journey, the people that are looking into discovering their magnum opus, their great works, according to the art of alchemy. Of course, when I speak about religion and I spice it a little bit with spirituality, there bounds to be a little bit of antagonistic attitude, because we're still operating with this belief that religion and spirituality have to fight. That's why I've taken it upon myself, self-appointed, of course, to clarify a lot of bullshit that is happening out there. You know? So, by the way, if you're new here, you can follow me so that whenever when I'm on live, you can be notified. If you still have some likes in your bag, you can drop them off here. The same goes with the giftings, of course. And I'm starting on a very much of a back foot because my network and my functionalities are a little bit off sync. So I'll be relying on you guys if you see me babbling by myself, just to say, that's what I've been saying, Wane, sorry. You know, if I stay away here for like 4 or 5 days, when I come back on, no, I'm only starting. We just start. You see, only the familiar faces are coming on through, but it's fine. Please do take note that I'm going to take your whole evening. You know, but that is only if you're interested in these things. It's a Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening, rather. We're just going to have a casual conversation. I'm speaking on an issue of religions of late. I usually speak on religions on a surface level, especially when I'm speaking about a whole lot amount of my nonsense that I normally commission here on these lives. The last time we were here, we were talking about natural ways on how to heal ourselves. And the other week, we were talking about morphogenic resonance, something like that. We tend to deal with very deep stuff here. You know, we deal with very deep stuff. I often find myself having to do this disclaimer before I start with my conversations. For the people that have heard it before, let's just do it for the benefit of people that are new here. Thank you very much for the share, Mwanesu Gyalebua. I see the likes are popping up as well. Thank you very much. You don't want to know the struggle that I had in starting up this live session. But I know normally when it starts like that, it's going to be a boom. We are now going through what they call Mahimhim. They say it in the corridors of New Ages. They call it the Massive Awakening, apparently. Everybody is into these things. I don't know what level of into them are you in. Some people are now starting with candles. Some people are dealing with colors. Some people are trying this thing of meditation. Some people are going syllabate, but you know. Well, so now, some people are starting with eating clean. Some people are only now becoming conscious of the GMOs, the contaminated food that we're eating. Some people are still caught up between, do I do ChatGPT or am I still behind? Because my daughter this morning was telling me about a new one. And I was like, to her, I haven't even started with ChatGPT and already there's a new one. You know? So it's of course going to be a good night one is. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be taking these things and putting it on my YouTube as raw as they are. Because I think it's time that we start documenting these things, especially for the people that are hopping on and hopping off, having to do something. You'll find this thing on YouTube as the way how it is. I'll make sure that I upload my YouTube details before I leave, in case you want to go check out some of my previous work. So now everybody is into this thing of consciousness. All of a sudden, we are the late laggers. You know? So now everybody all of a sudden is into spirituality, right? But the information that we do get, or how we get introduced into these things of spirituality, some of it is distorted truths. I don't know how you bumped into this thing of consciousness. Whether you are into drugs, all of a sudden you are now conscious. You know? Or you have an excessive amount of pain in your life, because you'll be surprised as to what triggers this thing of awakening. Or you are having an excessive pleasure in your life and it toggles with some of your subtler issues, inviting this thing of awakening. By the way, this thing of awakening or this thing of consciousness, it's the knowledge of self. It's not what we hearing out there about some aliens coming and the world ending and you're going to start seeing entities. Yes, all that will happen, but now I think it will be beneficial for us to start understanding the basic principles of what this thing of consciousness is. So me, on the other hand, I decide to come on and piss on a lot of people's theories. You know, I do it very gladly. You know, pissing on people's beliefs. If we were to go with this vibe of massive consciousness, we will need to understand that this cannot be approached using old beliefs. I'm not talking about the mythological stories. I'm not talking about the ontology. I'm not talking about the anthropology. I'm not talking about the cradle of wisdom that African spirituality contains. This is just the beginning of my conversations, so my English tends to be very deep. You know? But if you can bear it out for a little while, it will fail English here as the time goes on. Then I'll be back to a colloquial way of speaking. So I decide to. I'm trying to canvas the likes here. You know, you know how this platform works. It's just but it's fine. I'll have it with anyone that is here. I'm going to be taking these and putting them on YouTube, starting with this one here. So I decide to say, okay, fine. with a little bit amount of information that I'm busy gathering and collecting. Some of it from the books, some of them from the life experiences. Mostly my mistakes. Stick around, you'll understand where I'm going with this. If ever there's such a thing as a mistake, because there isn't actually, it's just a bunch of lessons. Especially the biggest things that you are feeling guilty of. And you'll see where I'm going with this. So I decided to come on and share this information, not conclusively, of course. If there's anything that I come and do here is just to talk to the people and have some mad amount of fun. But packed in that humor, there's tons and tons of subjects that we need to break down, that we are just overlooking, because all of a sudden everybody thinks that this thing of spirituality is about awakening the third eye and awakening the kundalini and moving objects and reading people's thoughts or healing people for that matter. All of these things come with spirituality, but with at different steps. They are called extrasensory perceptions. It's when you doing the chakra work, the healing work, what starts happening is each and every single psycho-spiritual center known as chakras has gifts for you. But don't get stuck with the gifts. Don't get caught up with the gifts. I know I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Let me just retract and start and take it step by step. Thank you very much, Tando, for the follow. I really appreciate it. What I do as I'm sharing up this information, I'm also suggesting the resources where people can get this information from. What good would it be if I come here, speak all these big words and very deep English, and not tell you where you can get them from? What would I be doing? If there's anything that I don't want to be known as the Gregoid, the reservoir of this information alone, because for some reason, this information that I'm sharing, all of us have been bequeathed with. We've been blessed with this information. Because in each and every single one of us, there is a global positioning system. There's a GPS that you set the standards and the dials to it to take you where you need to go. So when you hear me speaking about these things and you kind of like relating and in resonance, that does not imply that I'm the shit on this. Yeah. If there's anything, there is no authority on these things of spirituality. Nobody. Why am I rambling about with this thing? Because of this. What I'm going to be talking about here, it does not matter whether it's the lie or it's the truth. That is irrelevant. Because you have to decide what the truth is. I'm speaking on religion. I'm introducing the topic tonight. It's going to take a little while. I usually go on weekdays when I feel like there's something worthy to share. Because you'll be surprised, in this land of algorithms, people just want to come on every day and talk nothing very well. You know? But But hey man, we all know what is happening in this influential corners. People are influencers with no impact. you know. So, by the way, if you hear you one of the people that are creating content, I'm not throwing a shade at you. I'm also doing it or throwing it at myself. Because you could be asking yourself the very same question, what the fuck am I doing here? I don't know either. But here we here. I'm saying all of this to say to people, start accepting the responsibility that you have to take yourself there. Wherever way you think you need to go, which is one of the very perplexing thing about spirituality. All of a sudden, people that are conscious, they think there is somewhere where they need to go. It's like you're on a rush. you know? they told you about opening up the third eye, and every day when you wake up, that's all that you want to do. You don't even think about brushing your teeth. You don't even think about cooking the food. You don't even think about ironing the clothes. All that you're obsessed with is awakening up the Kundalini and being that. This week I'm speaking on religions, right? Why I'm taking so much time with this disclaimer, getting back to the topic of the night, I'm speaking about African initiated churches tonight. But the whole subject is on religion. Epistemologically or linguistically, you have to understand these things before you can start concluding which is the disease that has inflicted a lot of people that are into the new age. People look at something and they become very conclusive about it. You should actually be taking this thing as a very inquisitive scientist. This thing of you being conscious all of a sudden is going to test your resolves. Thank you very much, Manesu, for the giftings, Kiabona, and the likes and the comments. Namaste. This thing of consciousness is going to test your resolve as to how much confidence do you have in yourself. Because if you're coming into this thing of consciousness with rigidness, if you come with it, or if you come in it with inflexibility, it's going to trick you because this thing is like water, my friend. you know? the stronger you want to grip it, the more it's going to be elusive. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here because a lot of us jumped into this thing of consciousness with an unwritten promise that we're going to get something. And nothing could be further from the truth, because in actual fact, this thing of new age or this thing of spirituality is going to strip you off of a lot of things. To a point whereby the whole thing of spirituality is crippled by people that are looking for assurance. You walk around claiming that you are into these things of new age, but you're still not sure as your heart is talking to you. You want to call your guru, you want to call your friend, you want to call your so-called teacher to confirm. What does it mean if I see 1111? What does it mean when I see a black bird? What does it mean when I have a dream of a snake? What does it mean if I'm having spiritual husband or spiritual wife. What does it mean? Because you'd be surprised what people are going through. You know? That's if there's anything that is complex, it's this area of study. That is why I usually say to people, if you're not into it, don't let us convince you. Stay exactly where you are. This, of course, has been affected by the way on how we caught this thing of spirituality. Because if you catch it by the head, it will mean something different. If you catch it midway, it will mean something different. If you catch it by the tail side, it will also mean something different. Hence, I usually come on here, speak about these things, address a whole lot amount of subjects, trying to demystify a lot of them. Because dear Potter, you haven't seen nothing. Especially now that everybody's a teacher, which is one thing that I distance myself from. I'm any teacher of anything. I'm as a student as any of you guys here. That, of course, takes a bit of a pressure off me. You know? So this is where I'm going with this. We are so much fickle. We are so much flaccid. We are approaching this thing of spirituality with so much less confidence. To a point whereby the doubt that you have in yourself or the beliefs that you have about yourself or the lies that you've been telling about yourself to yourself, they are delaying the whole process of you finding yourself. Of course, to people that just want me to get to the end of this, how to do the fire breathing, how to do the whatever, these conversations are not necessarily for people that are in it for a short haul. You'll see what I'm talking about. So tonight we're speaking on African initiated churches under the banner of religion. I want to poke holes into these things of religions so that by the time when I'm done with it, all of us can understand what is the whole war about? What's the squabble? Because the other thing with the religions as well, they think they own God. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let me just slow down the horses. It's Sunday after all. I don't want to be... you know? So, by the way, I'm going to be putting these things on YouTube as raw as they are, where we're building up a little bit of a catalog. But my conversations are quite long, so if you have a knack for it, you can check them out. I'm saying all of these disclaimers to introduce these two systems, religion and spirituality. Religion, straight line. Religion, it's either it's black or it's white. It's either it's big or it's small. It's either it's up or it's down. It deals a little bit with morality of the civilization. And for my learned friends, that is for the people that are quite serious about this thing of consciousness, not the flip-floppers. Because one of the things that irritates a lot about this thing of consciousness is if you dabble into it, if you got one foot on the other one and one foot on the other one, and you're not entirely being honest with yourself, you'll find yourself having an unnecessary war internally. And I'm going to show you why. Which is the concept of guilt. If you guys are not aware, religions are thriving at the back front of guilt. Churches are known to be the institutions of guilt. If you're not like them, or if you don't do this, or if you don't affiliate with this, somehow you're going to be excommunicated. Or I know it. If you were to be pregnant, or if you were to be found doing things that are unbiblical, you know, what they will do, so basically they will get you stand in the presence of everyone and attack your identity. In a way, when religion attacks your identity, you get ostracized for you not believing what other people believe. And that can be very painful, because one thing that you have to understand, if you are into consciousness, half the time you're gonna be alone. You know, that, you gotta be so much alone that you won't have people to bounce the ideas with. And if you look at these two seemingly antagonistic systems, religion and spirituality, which, by the way, they are not supposed to be enemies, and you'll see why. The one speaks of things that a lot of people do. The other one speaks of things that a lot of people don't do. Why I'm taking so much time in this, I want to show the people that are on to this journey that you're going to have to start being so self-reliant on yourself, if there's such a thing in English. That if you joining or reading a book or having a discussion with your fellow conscious person or whatever research that you're doing, that should add on whatever that you are, not to go join the system out there. And somehow, if you're jumping from religion to spirituality, you have to start embracing the fact that you're going to have to become your own teacher. You're going to have to become your own student. You most of the times going to find yourself doing things that are not socially acceptable. And this thing, it's not only starting now. I can take you as far back as the 18th century. Let's go as far back as that. Let's go to the Greeks. For you guys that are into reading, study a little bit of Greek. I didn't prepare the books for this one here because I knew they're going to bring themselves up. The old Greek stories. This is the one that I have by Charles Henry Hansen. The old Greek stories. I want to speak about one philosopher in particular, Plato. For you, my learned friends, hey, Ramatla, when is it? We're speaking about African initiated churches, introducing the subject of religion that I've been saying I'm going to be tackling or dealing with. So eventually, I think I have the African religions. I also want to do this so that TikTok does not kick me out. You study the likes of probably not in this one. I wanted the one where they speak about Socrates, Plato. Let me stick it with Plato. I'll fix some of the books as the week goes by. But for now, this will serve as a first book of the night. The Old Greek Stories by Charles Henry Hansen. Why I'm saying that when you doing your research, inculcate a bit of Greek, this is why. Half of the story of African civilization found itself into or in Greek's hands. Solon will also tell you this. He's a Greek philosopher who Homer as well speaks about it. He's that guy that gave us stories about, is it Habakkuk? Who's this? Manetho as well studies a little bit of the relationship between Greeks and Egyptians. And I want to stretch all of them so that when I lay my skeleton with these things, I will show you the originality of why is religion and spirituality fighting. And the fight between these two is fictitious. It's not to exist. I'll also throw in a little bit of science to show you that the moment when you take these things of new age or of these things of consciousness, you can't just study one area of research. You have to study all of them. Because each and every single religion or each and every single book that is written does not tell the total truth. So umbona ke haketse sharing the books and all these nonsense, it's not to say that the book contains the end all and be all. You have to study and show thyself approved. That's why you'll hear me making very bold claims to say that all religions are the same. So us fighting about them is nothing but the waste of time. You know? And I know some of my Christian friends, they they tend to be very angry with that statement because let me not get ahead of myself. By the way, if you're new here, you can follow me so that when I'm on live, you can be notified. For the people that are here on the platform and already send up the likes, Kilabilo Minahani, it helps me with the algorithm. For the people that have sent up the gifts, Kabish. If you have a question or if you have something to ask or to comment, you can also keep the chat popping. Unless, of course, you're not known to be into these things. And for you guys that are watching me, spying on this platform, you guys are also welcome. Bagas. You know? So, with the disclaimers out of the way, the Greeks, when you study the likes of what was happening in the Athena courts, where Socrates used to go and hold his conversations or dialogues. Socrates, you can very well much call him the philosopher of the day that was very disruptive. Because often the discourses or the dialogues that he'll have with the youth will be very rebellious in nature, you know, going against what the government propounds for. As usual, right now, as we're going through the same thing. If you are into spirituality, you and the churches are not friends. Often than not, what the government is doing, you are not doing that. You know? So this thing of spirituality, there has a little bit of rebellion inside, and I want to show you why. It's not because you cheeky or you arrogant, but it's a nature of new age. It has that non-conformity kind of type of tip, it just say, you guys go there, me, I'll go there. I'm talking about it anthropologically, like this, studying the history that came before us. In an African way, we call it sankofa. It will be very impossible for you to go forward meaningfully if you don't know the meaningful part of your past. So as far as I'm starting with this, I'm starting it on the 18th, 19th century. The 1800s, 1798, And I know this does not make any sense to anyone that wants sensations, But for the scholars, this is for the scholars, you know what I mean? While we edit, go get the book. Let me write it down so that I can be as active as possible. 1984 by George Orwell. 1984 by George Orwell. And I don't know why the book showed up, but it will make sense as I'm going ahead. Socrates was actually subjected to death, or they call it assisted suicide, by drinking hemlock. His charge was he is corrupting the youth. Of course, you know how the whole thing works. The one that does the great work does not really write anything, because you'll often hear that Socrates didn't actually pen a lot of things, but they were written about him posthumous after he died by Plato. This is the guy that gave us the likes of the Discourses, the First Principles, the Age of Reason. He's the guy that was borrowed, or his concepts or idealism were borrowed a lot during the Renaissance period. The Renaissance period was that period whereby people were revolting against the religion, more particularly the Catholics, because by then the churches were the shit, man. Churches were higher than doctors. Actually, leaders of the churches, they held such a prestigious position that whatever that the church leader was expounding, or ideologies were followed without a question. Back then, of course, people that are into astrology, they will tell you that it was the heightened Piscean age. For you guys that are into the wobbliness of the universes, astrology, astronomy, the geeks, the freaks. The other book is just that it's balancing up my stand. It's the African Royal Calendar for you guys that are into astrology. Right now, we're working with the sun calendar. Start investigating a little bit of the moon calendars, the almanac. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but some of the things are going to be coming very instrumental. Let me just pause here. If you're new, you can follow me. And for the people that have done so, thank you very much. Welcome. For the oldies, the ones that have been here from day one, welcome back again. Nothing new is going to be said, by the way, which is one thing that I love about spirituality. We're saying the same thing over and over again, using different avenues. For the people that have sent the likes, people that have shared this, you can share it as well, or repost it. I don't know how it works. And We're going to be going for a little while, I think until 9 o'clock. I'm speaking about religion, but more particularly tonight, I'm speaking about African initiated churches. I'm going to be speaking about Mama Nku, a whole lot. Zionist churches as to Bukrekia Supiri, how did all of these things come about? Those are African initiated churches, by the way. As to how did they mix with the colloquial religions, which we call Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, even Buddhism these days is now taken an angle of religion. You know? So I hope you guys are having a good time. Let me know whenever when you're getting bored, because I tend to go for a little while, but I'm doing this because I'm documenting this. I'm going to be putting it on YouTube. Hey, shooter! So, Plato has a story, or he has a fable, or an allegory, or tsumo, or a fable. He calls it the allegory of a cave. You guys have probably heard about this, especially if you are a student of history. You will know that a lot of what the Greeks speak of or speak about, the truth that they're expounding, is African truth. From Greek art by Gessel Ritchie. This book here shows you that what the Greeks, the likes of Athena, Venus, Apollo, Jupiter, if you get into their mythology, they've all been borrowed from the African basis of stories. But our story, it's so very much diluted to a point whereby for you to get your true story, you have to borrow or read all of these areas, because as each civilization took our knowledge, they wrote about it as far as they can understand it. You know? When you study the likes of Pythagoras, thank you very much, Divine Alchemy. I really appreciate it. When you study the likes of Socrates, Plato, Plutarch, when you study the normal psychologists, you'll know that most of them, they actually took, if not all of them, they took the knowledge from Egypt, the Library of Alexandria. I just have my books a little bit further there, but I'll show them as the week goes by for the people that are into research. But study anything that has to do with ideas. That is why I'm speaking about psychology, and my main topic is religion. You're probably sitting there and asking yourself, how do they mix? You know? It won't be your fault. I do understand where you're coming from, but let me land. Let me cook this. And of course, when you come to this platform, somehow I'm going to stretch your brain, because you have to think, which is a hardest thing that we don't do these days, because we're just looking at 30 seconds videos. You know? And now, the moment when you take longer than 30 minutes, you lose a lot of people. And they'll be like, I don't know what he's talking about, but I just want to be here. Because I'm seeing there's a lot of people here, like 40 people in here. Half of you niggas don't have an idea what is it that I'm talking about. You know? So, but I'm trying to land here. So for the freaks, welcome. Let's move ahead with this conversation. By the way, I'm going to be putting this on YouTube. If you happen to leave and miss it, You can always catch it on YouTube, but they're going to run for like 2 hours, I think, if not more. I don't edit nothing. You're going to get it the way how it is. And if you knew you like catching it fresh and live, if you follow me, your chances will be very much improved. That when I decide to come on live, you can be notified. To a point whereby when you go to Delphi in I think it's in Greek, when you study the likes of Pythagoras, Euclidean, how the concept of mathematics came about, how fascinated Pythagoras was with numbers, to a point whereby if you did not have any knowledge of algebra, you were not admitted at his school because that's how strict he was with the numbers. Very obsessed. And when you study a little bit of Egyptology or modern day ideas of Egypt, not this nonsense that we hear about here, you know, and when you excavate this information, you not, of course, not going to find it on a silver platter. You have to invest a lot of years, a lot of tedious hours trying to excavate it because each and every single author, they have their interest of their own. A lot of books that have been written on Egypt, they've been written by sponsored scholars, people that have to tell the story but leaving out other information. One of the pivotal information about Egyptians is they were people of color, they were black. It's being said, but it's not said often enough, that Egypt is in Africa. Study a little bit of Zeb Tepi ontology or anything that has to do with Zeb Tepi on your Google, your ChatGPT. I hope I'm spelling it right, but if I'm not, Google will hook you up. Why am I speaking about Africa, lining it with the Greeks? All the wisdom, the knowledge, the understanding, the science, the mathematics, 7 liberal arts, enlightenment systems, Kundalini, and all the nonsense that everybody is raving about. The primary conception of all of this, even including astrology, it's found right here in South Africa, Mpumalanga. The method of counting, the method of calculating how many days are there in a month, were firstly grafted or ideologized or made popular by the matriarchal society that used to stay in the caves, Mpumalanga. This is where you find the carved bones, Lebombo bones. So now, even when you study Zeb Tepi, you'll see that the way how the civilization came about, the map, the Atlas map that we are all observing right now, it still needs to be worked on. Africa, it's not only the cradle of civilization because of human beings, but it's a cradle of civilization also because of ideas. But I want to show you as to how this thing was robbed, or to be nice, it was borrowed for us to take it later on. You know, to be nice, because sometimes you'll find some of the ideas have been taken, not only stolen, but borrowed for a later use by us. But what I find to be very perplexing right now is if you try to tell or make an African child to be aware of their knowledge, they start calling you crazy. But then, you know what? Each for their own these days. Different strokes for different folks. I just want to fix this thing. TikTok wants to kick me off. By the way, if you're catching this on YouTube, you can subscribe to my platform. I'm currently recording this on TikTok. You know, we're using modern technology for old problems. And if you're here on TikTok right now joining us, don't be so stingy with the likes. While I'm fixing up my debacle here. Yes, I have it right. Oh. So, the Greeks, basically, whatever the crap that they're talking about our stuff. When you study the allegory of a cave written by Plato or told by Plato, he says there's different principles, of course. No, you late, but not so. You know, I'm here until I think 9. I started around about 7:30, so I think you're still well on time. I'm speaking on African initiated churches, but now I'm introducing it using the banner of religion. The backbone of my conversation tonight is, or the gist, religion and spirituality are not supposed to be enemies. A lot of us are throwing the churches under the bus, not understanding that they're coming from a good place. You know, even though I'll get you there. Let me actually try to type it. I'll update it on my. Where's my YouTube? So I'm nice, you know. I'm very nice today. Ngwaneso ka e thola e le e reng ke Tshidiso Letlojane 2409. The crucified. Hey man, you know. Thola moya hanyenyana. You know. I understand where you're coming from. So now, in the allegory of a cave, I'll just borrow the tiddy bits of wisdom nuggets that the story is all about. By the way, do yourself a favor. Study mythological stories. More so, study the African mythologies. The Tsumo, the Bali, the poem, African writers. There's, of course, few to choose from, but I always go for Babu Credo, you know. and and the reason also is there are two supposed branches on spirituality. There are people that are on spirituality using patriarchal systems. There are people that are onto spirituality using matriarchal systems. There are people that are into spirituality with the concept of God is also a woman and she's black. And there are people that are into spirituality only knowing God as a man. These two systems are not supposed to be fighting. Because at the end of the day, it's a yin and a yang, the left and the right, the plus and the minus, the up and the down, the duality, the polarity. That is why I'm saying, slow down with these fights of yours. You know? So, hey, phela kuningi in churches, kuningi. So then, one of the things that the allegory of a cave teaches us is it is very, very painful for a human being to be ostracized. It's very painful for you to be kicked out of a group. Simple thing. Right now, I don't know if you guys have been to WhatsApp groups where you get to be kicked out. You know, that's a. Have you ever started an argument in a WhatsApp group and just when you're about to reply and you get to be you know, you get removed from a group and all of a sudden you feel like you wanna die because the pain is the pain. It's the same whether it's a WhatsApp group or being removed from a church or being removed from a clique. So in an allegory of a cave, the main character finds himself or themselves fighting against the hive, the hive mentality, the collective mentality, where often than not, if you are into these things, you have this war that you're fighting against rigidity, the normal way of doing things. Because the moment when you say that you are into new age, done, you are rebellious, you're out of the system. But I often find that people jump out of the pot and straight into the fire. You leave the church, you get into spirituality, but now you've made spirituality to be religious. Now it's a mess. You know, you don't you don't even know why you left your church in the first place, because in the spirituality that you are on, they are also giving you set of rules. You have to pray at this time, you have to eat this type of food, this is how you're supposed to dress, this is how you're supposed to be conducting yourself. You also get given guidelines and codes and the ways on how to do it, which when it comes to new age consciousness, spirituality, that all is rubbish. That is where the war is between spirituality and religion. But it's not that kind of war that you have to take at face value. You have to dig deep deep inside of it as to where does it come from. So it turns out that biologically, you and I, this thing is going on YouTube, so I have to have the face for it. you know. So you guys these days, you are into these aesthetics. So now, neurologically, mentally, celestially, energetically, we are wired for belonging. We are more comfortable in a hive, in a group, in a collective. This is an innate, natural requirement for existence. We are very good as human beings socializing. You cannot be able to be by ourselves. That is why you find in spirituality they speak a lot about isolation. Being alone. And you'll be surprised how many people cannot be able to do it. you know, everybody wants to be in a company of everybody. It means to show that biologically tattooed and wired in our cells, we have a need for belonging. And for us to be part of the culture, part of the group, part of the society, we have to do certain things that we culturally agree with. They call it collective consciousness. It's a collective thought form. It's an idea. Like when you go to church, the idea of Jesus Christ, it's so strong. you know, the idea of God being a man, it's so strong, inculcated, almost tattooed in ourselves that when someone comes and says, maybe Jesus never existed, or maybe God is a woman, you almost instinctively feel offended. You don't know me, I don't know you. But for some reason, when I tell you something that is the opposite to what you grew up knowing, your body tenses up and now gets ready for fight. And why are you fighting? you know, we are we are just exchanging ideas. I'm not even there close to you. Look at how far I am. But you're getting offended. It's the power of words, power of sound, power of ideas. So this guy comes and says, hey people, this thing that we call civilization, it's only half the story. This thing that we call our existence, it's actually being animated by some other people that regard themselves to be higher than us. This is a mythological story, of course. It's an allegory of a cave. An allegory or a mythological story or tsumo has multiple amount of meanings. If you read a mythology and you come out with one meaning, you're reading a wrong mythology or an ontology or or Pale Tsumo. You have to have a very open mind when you studying mythological stories. Like this one of Allegory of a Cave. It's a story that tells you that when you're doing things that are not groupy, or if you're doing ungroup things, you're gonna be kicked out. If you're telling people ideas that challenge their normal ongoing ideas, you'll be kicked out. And funny enough, you're gonna be kicked out by your very own. you know it's like with this thing of spirituality or this thing of new age. We're trying to do it like this just to make people to be conscious about it, to say, look, I know that you are into this thing of spirituality, but please take note that you are the only one who has to take yourself there, and all the roads are leading back to you. Part of the reason why in spirituality you often hear people talking about heal yourself, heal yourself, heal yourself, work on your trauma, heal yourself, heal yourself. Why? Because you're going to have to come back and become your own light when the group take away their light. This is where religion gets the juice from. Go, I want to show you why religion and spirituality, they are supposed enemies, even though they're not enemies. It's just ideologically they are very perpendicularly different. But if you're clever, if you're smart, if you've been in this thing for a minute, you would know that you have to take both of them with the same pinch of salt. That's why people that are coming on my platform, I tell them straight up, I'm not a teacher, I'm not a guru, I'm not taking anyone anywhere. If you vibe with these conversations, you're doing it out of your own volition. I'm not selling any spirituality, I'm not selling any religion. I'm very far from those things. Which is a very dangerous step that I've taken, because these days you have to stand for something. You have to argue. Mine is better than yours. And it's such a waste of time, because look, we've been speaking here now for almost an hour, and we've made so much of a gateway without arguments. But then go ahead and argue if you feel like it works for you. Finish the gateway experience. Okay. I don't know what that is. Enlighten me a little bit, Manis. What's a little nice? le gona neng se na le gore sia ba se le bua ka bo di-gateway jale la re tshosa ene o ska bone ka re bo thalentlhajana je go thatanyana neng ga o wa se go ema. So now this guy ends up leaving them to be like, okay, believe in whatever that you believe in. Why I'm speaking about the allegory of a cave, I want to line it up with what religion stands for, what religion expounds for. It's a collective thing, it's a cultural thing. We have to have similar amount of ideas for us to be a culture. That's why when you go to each and every single church, they all have different ideas. This one will be win the lost at any cost. This one will be bringing prosperity consciousness. This one will be talking about this. Basically, religions will not be able to thrive if there was no collective ideology. And the ideology, I spoke about this thing 2-3 weeks or a month ago, but let me just break it down a little bit. For the benefit of people that are into metaphysical studies as well, or if you dip into this thing of spirituality or consciousness, so that this that I'm talking about can start making sense. Biologically, we feed one another. Not like food. No. Not only that, but we feed one another with ideas, with opinions, with suggestions. We feed one another energy. When we're speaking or we commissioned a conversation like right now, the sum of food that you get or sum of nutrients that you get, but they're not physical. This concept, you can find it in the book Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield. You can also research this concept studying the Toltecs, the Fourth Agreement book, and the Fifth Agreement book. In there, the gist of these books is to say, us as human beings, we are energy beings. So if you are in a group, there's a certain amount of nourishment that you're getting from the attention or from the conversations or ideas that are being shared. So when you get excommunicated or taken out of the group, you're going to starve out of that energy, which challenges your existence. Hey, Shirley! Which is why you find a lot of people don't want to do this thing of spirituality, because if you are alone, meaning you're going to have to become your own energy. You're going to have to create enough energy to feed yourself. That's why you have to become the alchemist. Whatever that is bad, that you perceive to be bad, if there's such a thing as called bad, you have to have the ability to change it from the base state to the high state. You have to change the lead to gold. You have to change the shit to good stuff. But that you have to do it by yourself. That's very difficult if you usually get it for free from the group. Almost all the people that have been pivotal to civilization or important in redefining civilization ideas, the likes of Pythagoras, Plato, I spoke about him now, Babu Credo, Stephen Bantu Biko, Nelson Mandela. These are people that they were operating in a round circle, but they decided to become squares. They decided to become rectangular. They decided to become triangles. And that was painful to the circles. These were recluse. These were people that were called rebellious. You cannot be able to make an impact or a dent in civilization if you're going by the analogy, by what a lot of people agree on. And for people that are into spirituality and you've lost friends and mates and relationships, this will start making sense as to the price you pay for being alone. I'm speaking on African initiated churches tonight, but I'm dealing with this thing of religion. I'm going to land in a short while. Of course, I take a bit long talking about these concepts. Thank you very much for the follows. Like Salona. Boop, boop. And the giftings and the people that have shared this. I'm going to be putting this on YouTube exactly the way how it is. I'm speaking on religion. But the African initiated churches, as to why it came about. Zionist churches, IPHC, St. John, a lot. And the backdrop of my conversations is to say these things are not supposed to be fighting one another. They are all talking about the same thing. Okay, let me write it down on this. So these are not supposed to be fighting against one another. YouTube, she's away. 2409. It's there, yeah. So when you been at this journey for a little while, you will see that the more and more you study about where this truth has been borrowed from or taken from, all roads are leading to African spiritual science. Of course, it has been vilified. It has been called a lot of names. It's been called magic. It's been called black magic. It's been called devilish. It's been called heretic, heresy, a whole lot amount of names. But I want you to be very careful when you want to create the us versus them here, because it's one of the things as well on a spiritual journey. The longer you've been at it, you find that you arguing and fighting about it is not only useless, but how did you say? You know, MC Pan, I'm gonna be mentioning them now. I'm gonna be mentioning them. So when you look at actually I lost my train of thought, but let me just jump it in. It will line up somehow. It usually happens to me when I have a lot to share. That's why I've taken a very slow demeanor tonight so that I can be understood, because I tend to speak very fast and people listen very slowly. You know? So let's speak about why is it that our African science became to be vilified. Now that we know that it is not only biological, it's not only idealical, but it's also hardwired in us to belong, because we're getting the energy from other people. There are things that are called thought forms, collective ideas. which I spoke about some time back, where I was saying, where two or more are gathered, you will also find this in religious texts. They say, where two or more are gathered in his name, and therefore there I am. Something like that. Meaning to say, scientifically, when people are joining together, they are not only exchanging ideas, but they are building energy forms. They are creating elemental energies. We are, if you want to speak about spiritually, we are charging up the etheric realm. We are toggling with the cosmic resonance. We are disturbing ideas that often than not would like to remain unaffected. One of the biggest ideas on spirituality when I'm bringing it here is there's no intermediary between you and yourself. You're supposed to be having a speed dial to God. You know? Like when you just wake up in the morning, God, I've submitted this application, is not coming. But now what's happening is somehow religious institutions took the mediator role. It's only through me that you can be able to meet your God. How did we used to do it here in Africa? Let me just give you a little bit of mythological or ontology or anthropological 101 a little bit. Each and every single individual, when you study African science, all of us are healers. All of us. And healing, of course, there are different modalities. Some people will heal you with hands. Some people will heal you with words. Some people will heal you with herbs. Some people will heal you with TikTok. You know? Some people will heal you with Facebook. Some people will heal you with YouTube. There's different ways on how healing can be done. Healing, of course, does not only translate to biological healing, but it's also dealing about psychological healing. A little bit of therapy there and there, you know. Each and every single person in African spirituality, all of us were looked at as divinities. You have your sovereignty. That's why when you study African science, when a baby is born or when a child is born in an African homestead, and I'm talking about back in the days, not now, these days, you know, back then, they're still doing it a little bit up in Nigeria and other African countries. When a child is born, it's looked at as the old soul coming back. The concept of saying children are to teach us things, it's not a Western concept, it's an African concept. When you have a child, you're not necessarily supposed to be teaching your child things. It's your child that's supposed to be teaching you things. That is the matriarchal way of doing things, the motherly way of conducting civilization. This is from the idea of saying each and every single human being is God. The Gnostics call it each and every single one of us carry a divine spark. the book of Enoch that somehow didn't make it to the Bible canon, you know, or the book of Thomas for that matter, which didn't make it to the books of the Bible. It speaks about, in the beginning, all of us were energy before we became human beings. As a result, this thing of traditional healing that we're doing today, it needs to be revised there and there. Like, take a question of Hotwasa. Hotwasa, by the way, loosely translated, we can call it initiation, right? Initiation, Hotwasa, meaning you start something. You initiating. It's a genealogy. It's Hotwasa is to bloom. Hotwasa back then, according to African science or African technology, Onotwasa wena, meaning you are now realizing yourself, which affects the way on how you think and look at things. When you study secret societies, they call that the first degree. You know, for you guys that are spooked out here, hold on, I need to get a book. Let me get this book. Actually, let me not. I'll share the books tomorrow. I don't want to get lost. Recommend but here to those that read, I mean, like, and to those that read the cosmic teachings, kudos to you. And to those that remain blind by choice, you know, hey man, each for their own, each for their own, each for their own. I'm not here to be judging anybody, each for their own. Thank you very much, MC Post. I really appreciate the follow. It helps a lot. So, I'm speaking about African initiated churches tonight, but I'm speaking about religion as well. Sometimes it comes, you just need to open yourself up. A healer was not to administer more than one healing per day. A healer was not supposed to do the thing of healing while emotionally they're not stable. A healer had to have intellectual knowledge about what is it that they're doing. A healer not only had to be perceptive by being in sync with nature, but they also had to be perceptive by the way how they think. And this thing of thinking these days, you know, thank you very much. I see the comments and I see the likes and the giftings as well. And for the people that are new, welcome. You must be very brave to be joining such non-sensational conversations, because these are boring these days. You know? There's better things to talk about. Summer Watts, Casper, Tyler, you know, commissions and all the jazz. Our country is being fed entertainment, but nobody's looking for education with a little bit of entertainment. By the way, I'm going to be putting these on YouTube, so in case you've missed the last hour and a half, you'll find it there, just the way how it is. I've pinned my YouTube channel. You can go to it. Some subscribe. Some of the old videos there, because ideas never grow old anyway. A healer had to acknowledge the existence of unseen forces. This in science is what is called the quarks, the protons, the neutrons, the electrons. They call it metaphysics, they call it quantum physics, they call it charged particles, they call it positrons, they call it the ether, they call it the vital life force, they call it the chi. This thing that we see around us, it looks empty, but an African child used to know that nothing is empty here. You know, everything is packed with energies, even including ideas. These are things that, with this new age movement, enlightenment movement, which for me I see it as an enlightenment period, because everybody knows about everything, but nobody knows about anything contextually. Most of the information we get it from TikToks, YouTubes, books, and we feel like, you know, we can come and become teachers and gurus here. You know, that's why I usually say to people, when you come to my platform, I don't do none of that guru stuff. I don't do none of that teacher stuff. I'm just sharing out this information with people that are keen into talking about these things. Which basically, if you look at them, they are a bunch of nothing. A form of worship, a form of reverence, a form of acknowledgement, a form of being in awe has always been our African thing. When we had the rain, we were thankful to nature for rain. You know, when our plants were giving us good harvest, we were proud about it. When we were having plagues in terms of diseases in our culture, in our civilization, we used to have different concept as to what could be causing this plague, what could be causing this disease. And somehow we've always had this thing of acknowledging the power that is beyond us. But we never gave it a name. It never used to have the name. Some days you'll find us calling it Katlamacholo, some days Ramasedi, some days Ramologi, some days Senesapula, some days Nomkubulwana, some days, you know, depending which system are you coming from. But there was never like a name. You know? Because the challenge was, if you were to name the divine force, you would limit it. Because the same Gamata, the same entity could also be spoken to by the midwives or by the grandmother when they are about to deliver an offspring. You'll find in meaning if there's complications in a the grandmother or one of the experienced midwives will go at the back of the yard and speak to the source and speak to this empty space that we call nothing. The source, the force in Star Wars. Luke Skywalker. May the force be with you. But now, as the civilization went a little bit, you know, over the 18th, 20th century, at the height of it, we started having visitors, call them explorers, depending on what study, or the likes of Ole, what Vasco da Gama looking for spices, and people that came here, Bojan van Riebeck, a whole lot. You remember them, the white folks. You know, I saw a book when I was collecting these books. Uh, One of the books was what what would have happened to Africa if there were no white people. I kid you not, that was the title of the book. I just didn't get it because there were some yummy books that I had to get in preparing for this conversation of religion. So as the missionaries came, after suffering a lot of resistance, of course, from different civilizations and different cultures, the missionaries could not become successful in the likes of Asia. It's very rare that you find Chinese that are Christians. They also did not manage it that much in the Deep East. When you go to India, it's very rare where you find an Indian who is a Christian. And this goes for different civilizations, the likes of Mexico, wherever where you want to zone in your attention. These are some of the areas where religion never caught on. Yeah, but it came here, eh? You know, hey man, this thing of missionaries and religions, it came here to Africa and it caught. Oh, it caught. And it's still cutting even now. You know? And when, of course, the missionaries came about, they knew that there are things that us as Africans we know, but they can't explain them. When you study religion, I'm just giving you just a bit of religion 101 so that you'll appreciate what I'm going to be saying after this. Not to believe it, no, don't. Just do your own homework. Now, when the missionaries came about here, they observed that we have names for these things. You know, let me just write what brought about that argument. Polytheism versus monotheism. During the time of colonizing, hey, one is you'll just never know. Hey, maybe perhaps you need to ask them. Hey, they're very sensitive people to pick up on. Hey, that's why whenever when you speak about religion, they are very apt to say that you are taking them, even though you're coming from a good place. But for me, here, my religious friends, they know what I'm talking about. Because tonight I'm talking about African initiated churches, but from the banner of religion. This, to Africans, it was normal, but to outsiders, it looked as if like it's heretical. It does not have one set system. How is it that these guys or these people can have reverence to different energy deities? For Pula, they will be talking about this energy. For the earth, they'll be talking about this energy. For the lightning, they'll be talking about this energy. For the plants, they'll be talking about this energy. They actually have animal totems. This concept of animal totems comes from us African children. To say, wena umukwena, wena umutlou, wena umukubu, wena umufukeng. Mainly because animal totems represented the ideas that we could see ourselves as the animals were exhibiting their traits. That's how tuned we were with nature, very connected. But now you can understand, to a foreigner, this system is very confusing. This is where polytheism came about, coined, and it was attacked. This is a term that was made popular by the missionaries, by religion, as it was bringing in these teachings. You cannot be praying to multiple gods. That's where now the issue started being a problem for Africans to be like, Are you meaning to say that we're just supposed to be observing one God? Are you for real? You know? And the religions were like, yes. And if you don't, we're going to call you heresy, or we're going to call you heretical. Heresy or heretical means he or she who has multiple options. That's what heresy means. They also going to call you pagans if you don't believe in one God. What is a pagan? When you study linguistics, pagan means the dwellers of the land, or the dwellers of the native land, which is you as an African child. Fast forward, as the Catholics managed to somehow subdue our systems, win a lot of people in this thing of monotheism, and polytheism was seen as evil. He who worshipped multiple gods or observes multiple gods was called, by the Arabs, they were called the Kafirs. This thing of kafir, this is where it comes from. This thing of Arthur that speaks of, don't call me a kafir, and all of a sudden a kafir started becoming a derogatory word. Get the history where it comes from. This is where it comes from. I hope I'm still audible enough. My network is proper. Non-believers. Thank you very much, Wanis. The Arabs, they started calling the people that did not believe in Allah, which is one Allah, who has 99 attributes, but one Allah, one God and God one, something like that. When the Arabs, of course, came, when Islam came and all other religions came, the way was made by the Catholics. And as religion was introduced, our African science, techniques, spiritualities, principles were bundled all under bad things. And the more and more people you recruit, remember that thing that I told you about collective, the beehive, the collective thought, the group think. If 9 people stand for idea Z and you as one person, you stand for idea X, no matter how strong your X idea can be, you're going to be bet by majority rule. They call it democracy. You're supposed to be freedom, but it's not. Politics or politics. Speaking of politics, I have a book here, Internal Politics. Oh, it's not here. I'll line the books tomorrow as I'm coming on, but for now, I just want to introduce this as to religion and spirituality, and I want to speak about African initiated churches as to how they came about. So this thing of religion, it's so ingrained in us, not only psychologically, but biologically. But the systems are different. The system of observance are different. When we were thanking the God of rain, we were not praying to the God of rain or the goddess of rain. We were saying thank you. It's a form of appreciation, acknowledgement, reverence. Same thing can be taken to the people that came before us and died, also known as ancestors. When we speak, when we call them, we're not necessarily praying to them, but we are acknowledging their existence. But as the religions came about and hijacked the ideas and introduced one God, and if you don't go with one God, you are evil, the ideas of hell and heaven started gaining power. You know? Because, by the way, this thing of heaven and hell, it's not so much of an old idea, that much. It's a couple of millennia old because it's a new concept that came about where for you not doing what is colloquially being done, you had to be promised something that will be testing your resolve. Something when you think about going to hell, rather than going to hell, you'd rather go to heaven because the concept of heaven has been sold with such a niceties. There it's full of milk and honey, which by the way, it speaks about your human anatomy, your head, your pituitary, your pineal gland. You know? So I don't want to get ahead of myself. So now hell was introduced, and our parents and our grandparents were now scared of going to hell, so they had to do God stuff. This now one God. Me and you, we all know what religion has done to us. It has taken over everything. Rather, let me say, they have taken parts of things which is not the final truth. However, make no mistake, each and every single religion has an element of truth in it. That's why before you can say, fuck the religions, I want you to retract a little bit and study them, which is what I'm going to be talking about next week. We're going to be talking about different religions. I'm going to be starting with Christian Science by Mary E. Baker. I'm going to give you a little bit of ontology, the background, and we're going to be studying Scientology. We're also going to be looking at different type of religions, Mormonism, the Latter-day Saints, Seventh-day Adventist, Roman Catholics, and other different religions that are not so very well known. Why I'm commissioning up these? You Shapile vandaag. Why I'm commissioning up these is just to say, but worry not. I'm gonna be putting these things on YouTube. I'm putting them on tonight. Exactly the way how it is, because we've been speaking now for 2 hours. I've pinned up that. Go subscribe to my channel on YouTube, and I'll put this 2 hours that I've done there to there on YouTube. So that's what I'm going to be doing, speaking about religions, right? But I wanted to give you guys a background before, because whatever that I'm going to be saying from now onwards is just going to be bam, 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 bam. That's why I'm taking so long building up this scaffolding. And then some of the Africans were not joining these religion systems happily. You know, us as Africans, we went to church, but we were like, we know that they're selling bogus stuff there. You know, like we know that what they're selling there does not exist, but we just gotta go anyway. This is the concept when you study religion. It's called syncretism. Syncretism. Yeah, Langwanes. Thank you very much. Base ba lebetse ka mona na wena ha ba mbetjhe lo mbetjhe o ba etsa hantle. So this is now where African initiated churches come about. Bokereke ya Sephiri, Zion churches, IPHC, St. John, all African initiated churches, they came because African spirituality was being abused. The likes of voodooism, when you're going up there in civilization. But ke batla bua ka tsa mona na lapeng. These African initiated churches came as a result of mixing African spirituality with religious ideas. I wanna show you how smart Africans are. Witty. If there's anything that you can't take away from an African child, it's but the problem is thinking is no longer allowed because often than not when you think you often find yourself alone. So it's very tiring. That's why you'll find a lot of people going with the mainstream, with what a lot of people are doing. Majority rules, they say. Some of the comments were filtered. Sis. We're trying to make this thing clean here, and some of the comments are whatever. So, by the way, thank you very much for the likes. I'm about to tone it down. As you can hear, I'm lending already African initiated churches. I'm going to be breaking them all down depending on whichever that you want me to address. But I have certain sets that I'm going to be breaking down, and I know some people are interested in like other religions. I'm going to be talking about Scientology by L. Ron Hubbard because it's one of the requests that I got. But if you have any religion that you want me to break down, do let me know. If you catching this on YouTube, you can also do that. If you manage to listen to me up until this far, because this is like 2 hours long. African initiated churches came as a result of saving African spirituality. That's why if you go into Ndumba tse ding today, even still, o hlahlobua Bible e le teng, with candles and other regalia of Bosangoma, and you sitting there and asking yourself, how does this two mix? You know? And now you'll be like, I remember the first time when I went to Kondumbing and I was looking at this person, o hlahloba ka Bible, I was like, okay, now I'm confused. Because remember, we grew up knowing what but now all of a sudden now, this is the cleverness and the wittiness in infiltrating the religions. Because remember, African spirituality was infiltrated, and now us as Africans, we were now infiltrating the religions. We're breaking it from the inside. All of these systems, spirituality along with religion, if you study it with an open mind, you'll start appreciating all of them. Which brings me to finalizing this conversation. They do not have to fight. They are not enemies. All of them are carrying a certain element of truth, but now we are lazy in or by design as African children in terms of studying. We are very lazy, and it's no longer shameful. It is now a norm. When you come and you speak to people about books and eclectical ideas, people think that you are a unicorn, When you do videos with original ideas, not doing chat GPTs and AI videos, people look at you as if like you're an African treasure. They're like, this is what we're all supposed to be doing. He who knows one book knows none. People perish because of lack of knowledge. Study and show thyself approved. Ke tlo sebetsa le tsona dikereke tsa sephiri, of course, ha ntse ke ela pele. But I'm going to start with Christian Science by Mary E. Baker tomorrow. Give you the background as to how it came about. Then we'll go. Then I'm going to be dealing a little bit, I think, the next live after that one with Scientology. They're going to be lengthy conversations, but I'm going to be showing you the ins and outs of sometimes we judge things or we are afraid of things not because they are necessarily dangerous. We prematurely judge things or we are afraid of things because we don't know about them. If there's a devil that we have to fight, it's not the devil that is underneath Mo Chisang. The devil that we have to fight is the devil of ignorance. The hell that it's been spoken about, it's not a place. The hell, it's the ignorance, the darkness. I'm going to be putting this on YouTube just now once I'm done. Go check it out in case you missed it. And you can also catch some of my old videos that I've done there. I've pinned my YouTube channel here. You can go check it out. And if it's for the first time you are here, you can follow me so that when I'm on live, you see, you can be notified. For people that have sent the giftings, Kilabilo Menahani, for the people that have listened through up until this time, you guys are nothing but the bosses. For the spies that are listening from the background, I'm checking you out as well. You know? And for the crazy ones that are on a journey, let me wrap it up with this. The reason why you find religion to be constricting and binding and limiting, it's not because you are a bad person. It's because the moment when you jump to spirituality, the lines start getting blurry. Lines don't exist there. Rules don't have place here. But that doesn't mean that spirituality is a dumb science. No, it's actually the science of the highest order. But you have to get into it as a scientist, as a researcher. You know, don't just, you know. So often than not, you'll always find yourself that you by yourself. Don't lose heart. That's how it works. Until then, see you guys on the next video.